see that? That right there? That's how hard I'm trying to get you to subscribe to this channel. He thought he was alone until something strange appeared across the lake. While fishing at Big Creek Lake in Wilmer, Alabama, a man spotted something unusual moving near the opposite shore. It wasn't a deer, it wasn't a bear, so he grabbed his phone and snapped a few photos. What the image showed was unsettling. A figure covered head to toe in dark fur, standing upright. But it didn't quite match the typical Bigfoot profile. This one was smaller, stockier, and more ape-like in its posture. Some who analyzed the photo suggested it looked more like a gorilla than a Sasquatch. But of course, gorillas aren't native to Alabama, and none had escaped from local zoos. Others speculated it was a prankster in costume. But who would risk creeping around remote wetlands in a gorilla suit during hunting season? Could this have been a juvenile Bigfoot caught in the open just long enough to raise new questions? Is it a hoax, a misidentified animal? When the forest screams, and no known animal can be blamed, you listen. A new Bigfoot recording has surfaced out of Stark County, Ohio. The exact location remains unknown, but with dense forests scattered throughout the region, it could have come from almost anywhere.
What I'm recording right now sounds very similar to what I heard back in 1991 or 92. Does not sound like a dog at all.
In the original video, a chilling howl cuts through the stillness. The sound is deep, drawn out, and like nothing local wildlife is known to produce. At first it's distorted, but once audio experts cleaned up the clip, the sound became clearer. The call bears an eerie resemblance to the famous 1994 Columbiana County howl, an audio sample often cited by Bigfoot researchers. And it's no coincidence, Ohio is one of the most active states for Bigfoot sightings, especially in and around Salt Fork State Park, just a short drive from Stark County. If this new howl is legitimate, it could be the latest vocal proof of something hiding in those woods. So what do you hear in that scream? An unknown predator? Or something long rumored to roam Ohio's forests? Captured on Christmas Day, this eerie footage may reveal something sitting just beyond the firelight, something that isn't supposed to exist. On December 25, 2009, a camera set up in Washington state snapped a mysterious photo. The goal? To bait a Sasquatch using food and snacks near a quiet campsite. In the frame, a massive, dark figure appears, seemingly kneeling beside the picnic table. Its posture is strange, its head low, shoulders broad, with no visible neck. Unlike a bear, this figure has a human-like back and a defined muscular shape. One unsettling detail, a deep groove runs down the center of its back, separating its large muscles, something no bear is known to exhibit. And probably the craziest part is that it wasn't tearing at the food or charging the camera. It was just sitting there, watching, waiting. So what is it? I mean, if this really was Bigfoot, I feel like we have more questions than answers now. While exploring deep in the wilderness, something unusual brought him to a dead stop. There in the soft ground was a set of footprints, huge ones. Nothing like the animal tracks he was used to seeing. One print in particular stood out, clear as day, massive, almost human, but far too big to be. There were no claw marks, no signs of dragging, just a clean, heavy impression. The kind of print that suggests something upright, something powerful. Is there something we still don't totally understand walking around out there in the Canadian woods? It started as a simple task, just collecting firewood. But it ended with one of the most terrifying encounters this man would ever experience. He was deep in the woods gathering branches when he heard it. Heavy, deliberate footsteps crashing through the underbrush. Too rhythmic to be an animal, too powerful to be human.
Серега, что это? Серега, да ну, Серега. Серега, ну.
That's when he saw it. Just a short distance away, a massive figure moved through the trees. It walked upright, like a man, but was far too large and broad to be anything ordinary. He managed to capture a few seconds of footage. The movement was fluid, calculated, not like a bear or any four-legged predator. This thing was aware, and it was close. He still calls it the scariest moment of his life. Was this a rogue forest dweller? Some unknown creature? Whatever it was, it didn't feel like it was supposed to be out there. But then again, maybe he felt that way about this guy. What looked like just another scenic photo turned into one of Canada's strangest cryptid sightings. Back in 2005, a French-Canadian trucker snapped a picture while visiting Seven Falls Park in Quebec. It was peaceful, just trees, water, and unspoiled nature. But days later, while reviewing his photos, something caught his eye in the bottom right corner. A towering figure, broad, covered in dark fur, with gorilla-like features, a cone-shaped head, and long arms. Some even say it was holding something. Speculation exploded. Was it Bigfoot? A dog man? Skeptics wrote it off as pareidolia. But when the man returned to the same location, the figure was gone. No sign, no proof. So what exactly did he capture in that single frame? I have to admit, it eerily looks like a Bigfoot. Finds you well. I stumbled onto your YouTube channel last week while I was trying to make sense of something I can't fully explain. Part of me wants to keep quiet about this, and part of me feels like I have a responsibility to share it, if only to see if anyone else has gone through something similar. Sorry if I jump around a bit. It's hard to put all these pieces together in a neat timeline because they didn't feel connected at first. Maybe they still aren't, but I can't shake the feeling that they are. I grew up in Alamogordo, New Mexico, and my dad worked civilian contracts at Holloman Air Force Base for years. He helped maintain some of the older radar installations and occasionally got called into White Sands Missile Range for specialized projects. I never knew much about it because he was on a need-to-know basis, and we didn't press him for details. Growing up near places like Roswell, I always heard alien stories. People in town still tell you which diner the Roswell crash survivors, or specimens as some folks say, supposedly visited. Or where the men in black, though no one uses that term in everyday conversation, poked around. For a while I brushed all that off. Even when I was little, I'd roll my eyes at all the touristy flying saucer murals. It felt like a gimmick to lure in travelers driving along US 70. But when I turned 19, right after finishing a semester at NMSU in Las Cruces, I had a summer job at a local trucking yard near Oro Grande. Mostly night shifts, which I initially liked because it was calm, just the hum of the desert wind and the occasional coyote yip. Then came the weird sightings. I'd see lights zigzagging over the Sacramento mountains, not exactly planes, not exactly helicopters. My coworkers joked that I was seeing ghost choppers the Army tested. One time I watched this orb, best way I can describe it, hover above the dunes, flicker red, then shoot off so fast it seemed to vanish into thin air. You can't unsee something like that. I tried to rationalize it, maybe a drone, maybe a reflection on my windshield, but it felt off. I mostly forgot about all that until about 2 months ago. I got a call from my old high school friend who joined the Air Force right out of school. He's since retired, did 20 years, and now does some consulting. He never talked about weird stuff during his service, not even once. So it threw me when he suddenly said, "I need to tell you something, but you have to promise to keep it under wraps." It sounded dramatic, like a bad spy movie. He wouldn't say everything on the phone, so we met for lunch at the Cattle Baron in Alamogordo one weekend. It was a casual lunch, talked about families, old friends, the usual, until the very end, when he started asking me if I remembered those nights at the trucking yard and the lights I used to complain about. He said, "Don't you find it weird that everyone kind of brushed that off?" I told him, "Well, yeah, but I assumed they knew something I didn't." He got this serious look. According to him, some high-level folks know we're not just dealing with test crafts or foreign drones. He claims that since the 90s there have been rumored encounters out in the desert. Incidents that almost never make it to local news or even the rumor mill. He told me about a hush-hush incident at White Sands in early 2005, which would have been right when I was working that night shift job, involving a group of unknown aerial objects that hovered and darted around the missile range, setting off sensors. The details get fuzzy, but apparently the brass arrived, closed off the area, and told everyone to keep their mouths shut. He insisted that we have non-human tech quietly observed or tested out there, or there's something non-human actively watching us. Could be both. I'd be inclined to call him paranoid if it wasn't for the other things I started noticing about 6 weeks ago. I was driving US 70 toward Las Cruces in the late afternoon just to visit my aunt and uncle that were in town, and I caught sight of a formation of lights over the desert. They were in a perfect equilateral triangle shape, 3 bright white lights. They drifted apart, then snapped back together, and the entire formation vanished. It almost looked like a single object was cloaking, if that makes any sense. I pulled over at a rest stop to see if anyone else was looking. A couple from Texas was outside their RV pointing at the sky. They said they saw it too. They joked about it, said it might be ET, then went back inside, but they definitely saw something unusual. I texted my Air Force friend about that triangle, and he responded with, "I'm not surprised and you shouldn't be either." He then warned me to keep an eye out for unmarked helicopters. I thought he was being dramatic again, but sure enough, a few days later I noticed 2 black helicopters flying low near my apartment in Alamogordo. No visible ID numbers, no obvious markings. Now, to be fair, they might have been standard military. It's not that crazy around here, but it got my nerves up. Why was I suddenly noticing all this? A few nights after that, I was at Oliver Lee Memorial State Park. I'd gone there for a quick stargazing session. Sometimes I just like to drive out and clear my head. Around 10 p.m., the campsite was mostly empty except for one family in an RV. I strolled down one of the short trails, turned off my flashlight, and tried to let my eyes adjust to the night sky. Then I heard this faint hum. It wasn't like the desert insects, it was more of an electric buzz. Almost like you're standing under a high-voltage power line. The strange part was, there aren't any big lines running overhead there. I looked up expecting to see a plane's flashing lights, but I caught only a faint outline of something blocking a small patch of stars. It was almost like a dark silhouette gliding silently. Then that hum intensified and the shape just zipped away. No sound, no gust of wind. A moment later, I heard the RV door slam. Maybe they saw it too? Anyway, about a week after that, my friend asked me to meet him again. This time he came to my house and he brought a binder of old, declassified documents. Nothing super top secret, but they had interesting references to sightings near the Trinity site going as far back as the late 1940s. He also showed me an article about Project Blue Book's lesser-known investigations in southern New Mexico. According to him, a lot of stuff didn't even make it into the final records. At one point I asked, "So, do you think it's aliens?" He responded that he wasn't sure, that for all we know, it could be interdimensional or something else entirely. He claimed some folks he's spoken to have even used the word Lemurians, referencing mythical advanced beings, but he had no clue if that was just off-the-wall speculation. After that conversation, I started having trouble sleeping, which might sound overdramatic, but it's the truth. Every little noise outside at night made me wonder if some unmarked vehicle was rolling up. I also realized my phone battery was draining abnormally fast, which might be purely coincidental, but you can guess where my paranoid mind went. Like something was intercepting my signals. I started looking into EMF detectors, which ironically made me remember stories from your YouTube channel about people scanning their property after UFO sightings. I couldn't believe I was now one of those people, ordering gear off the internet to check for unusual electromagnetic spikes in my living room. I'm also finding myself more suspicious about what my dad worked on. He passed away a few years back, so I can't exactly ask, but I remember he used to come home from White Sands looking exhausted, sometimes cryptic about the weird tests they ran. I figured it was just hush-hush missile stuff or flight technology. Now I wonder if he saw more than he let on. Maybe he had some reason to keep quiet. I recall he once told me that if I ever saw lights that don't match anything we fly, I should just let them be. My mother teased him, saying he sounded like a conspiracy theorist, but he never laughed. All of this makes me question how many other people around Alamogordo have seen the same things I have, especially longtime residents who've learned to ignore the lights or chalk them up to military drills. You'd be surprised how many odd stories you hear when you just ask. The guy who changes my oil told me last week that his cousin swore he saw a hovering craft shaped like a boomerang out near Cloudcroft. Another guy at the barbershop said he watched little silver guys wandering near some basalt outcropping by the missile range fence. He said they disappeared when I blinked. He shrugged it off, claimed he had no proof, so who'd believe him? I've been going on forever here, but I guess I just feel like I need to unload this to someone who might actually listen. I don't have any proof. I don't have pictures or video. I tried to grab my phone once to film the lights, but by the time I got the camera open, they zipped away like they were playing with. There's a sense that they, whoever or whatever they might be, know exactly what they're doing and don't want the average person catching on. I guess that's why I'm writing into your YouTube channel. I've come to know you on Dread Captures, and I've heard you give a fair shake to stories that aren't necessarily Hollywood flashy or just come from a random listener. I don't need people to believe me wholeheartedly. I just want to get it out there in case someone else in southern New Mexico is seeing the same phenomenon. And maybe, just maybe, someone else has puzzle pieces that fit mine. Anyway, I appreciate you taking the time to read this. If you end up sharing it, that's fine. If not, I totally understand. It's not like I can offer a smoking gun or some big revelation, aside from the fact that at least one former Air Force guy and a few random folks around here sense there's more going on than just advanced aircraft tests. I kind of hope I'm wrong, but I have a gut feeling that the desert is holding on to secrets older and stranger than most people realize. Thank you for hearing me out. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'll do my best to recall details or dates, but I admit some of it's a blur of tension and half-remembered sightings. The nights in Alamogordo can be hauntingly beautiful, but they can also leave you looking over your shoulder for whatever's lurking overhead. Take care. Ryan E. from Alamogordo, New Mexico. I've been lurking here for a while, but this is my first time actually posting anything. Honestly, I'm still not sure if I should. A part of me worries I'm inviting trouble just by speaking up. Anyway, here goes. Back in 2019, I was working as an on-site network technician for a government contractor at the Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama. Nothing super top secret, just setting up secure communications networks for day-to-day operations. I never had high clearance, I never asked too many questions. I was just happy to have a stable gig after bouncing between tech jobs for years. When I was on site, we'd mostly do routine maintenance checks in a secured building near the Army Materiel Command Headquarters. If you know Redstone, you know it's the heart of a lot of missile and rocket research. Plus, it's home to the FBI's Hazardous Devices School. Busy place, lots of hush-hush stuff, but I figured it was standard military procedure. One night in mid-August of that year, my boss asked if I could pull a late shift because they needed someone to upgrade a batch of servers off the main corridor. That corridor is typically pretty quiet after 6 p.m., almost no foot traffic aside from security patrols. I settled in, half expecting an uneventful night of software updates. Around 1:30 a.m., I took a break to grab a soda from the vending machine near the side entrance. It was a calm, humid night, and I stepped outside for just a moment to stretch my legs. That's when I noticed a large unmarked cargo truck pull up near a loading dock off to the left. Now, unmarked vehicles aren't that strange in a place like Redstone. Plenty of contractor trucks, no biggie. But something about this one made me pause. Instead of the usual khaki or black, it was a dull slate gray, almost metallic, and had no license plates, not even government ones. Two men jumped out wearing plain black uniforms with zero insignia. They moved fast, like they knew exactly where they were going. I guess I was staring because one of them turned his head like he noticed me. I quickly went back inside, telling myself, "Don't pry, it's none of your business." 5 minutes later, I heard what sounded like a mechanical hum from the hall leading toward that loading dock. It reminded me of the noise you get when some heavy industrial machine powers on. A low vibrating growl that you feel in your chest. Curious, I poked my head out to see if maybe they were running a generator, but the hallway was empty. The doors to that area were all sealed. A few days passed without incident, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Then, about a week later, my coworker mentioned something odd. The building's security cameras in that same corridor had a glitch that exact night. The footage from around 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. was corrupted, showing just static. He joked that it must have been an EMP test, but he looked genuinely puzzled. I asked if the glitch happened anywhere else, and he said no. Just that one stretch of hallway. And he only knew because IT had asked him to check the data logs. I didn't connect the dots until another incident happened in early September. We had to do a network diagnostic in a back room near the main data center. I was with two guys who had higher clearances than me, so they usually took the lead. After they unlocked the door, we stepped into this small lab area I'd never seen before. Dimly lit, crammed with metal cases, and there was this chemical smell, like bleach and sulfur all at once. We'd barely started opening the server rack when we heard voices in the hall. Not just normal conversation, raised voices, like an argument. We froze because we weren't expecting anyone at that hour. My coworker whispered, "Let's hurry up and finish." But something made me linger, listening. The voices drifted closer. I caught snatches of phrases like "classified beyond their pay grade" and "move it before the morning shift." Then I heard a different voice, calmer, say something like, "This is direct from the DoD, no paper trail." I tried to look casual, but adrenaline was hammering in my ears. A minute later, the voices receded. My coworkers pretended nothing was off, but they were nervous. We finished our job as quickly as we could and left. After that, random small things kept happening. Access badges stopped working in certain corridors. My timesheet was flagged for review even though everything was normal. One morning, my phone alarm didn't go off, and I found it had reset overnight. Maybe that was a fluke, but I'd read enough online to know that weird phone glitches can be a sign someone's tampering with it. By late September, I started feeling paranoid. I confided in a friend who used to be stationed at Fort Bragg, and he told me about rumored black projects that shuttle in and out of major Army installations. He'd heard stories of unmarked trucks and quiet flights coming into Pope Army Airfield under the radar, so to speak. At first, I blew it off. We see unmarked vehicles all the time in the defense world, right? But I couldn't ignore the sense that something bigger was going on. Then, in early October, I got an unexpected message from an old contact, someone I knew in college who ended up working as a civilian analyst for the NSA. Let's call him B. He reached out of nowhere to ask how things were at Redstone. I joked that it was above my pay grade to discuss. He shot back, "I've been hearing chatter about major anomalies being relocated. Word is they're using Army sites to store or study them." I asked if he meant anomalies like advanced weapons or experimental drones. He hesitated, said, "Think bigger, think out of this world, literally." At that point, I wrote it off as some crazy rumor, but I couldn't shake it. A few nights later, I was heading home after a late shift. The roads around Redstone can be eerie at night, long stretches of highway with minimal streetlights. I was almost at the exit for I-565 when I noticed 3 vehicles behind me, all with tinted windows. Maybe it was just a convoy, maybe not. But they kept pace with me for a few miles before turning off. The next morning, my landlord mentioned that 2 men in suits had stopped by, asking if they knew me and how long I'd been renting. Again, might be coincidence, but it all felt too on the nose. By mid-October, I was practically jumping at shadows. Around that time, rumors started swirling about something being transferred from Redstone Arsenal to Wright-Patterson AFB in Ohio. People in the break room speculated it was ballistic missile tech. Someone else joked it was little green men. I stayed quiet, but my mind kept circling back to the unmarked truck, the missing camera footage, the heated conversation in that hallway, and that hum, like some piece of machinery that wasn't standard military hardware. My last week on that contract was late November. I had no intention of renewing it. The final straw came when I went to clear out some old cables from a storage closet. I found a sealed cardboard box with Project Osprey stenciled on the side in black letters. I'd never heard of any project by that name. The box was taped shut, but it felt oddly heavy for its size. At that exact moment, a stern voice behind me said, "Need any help with that?" It was a uniformed officer I'd never seen before. No name patch, no rank insignia. Just the Army combat uniform with 0 identifying marks. My heart nearly stopped. I stammered something about looking for old Cat 6 cables. He smiled, or tried to, took the box from me and said, "I'll handle this one." Then he walked off and I was left standing there like an idiot. I put in for a transfer that evening, and within a week I was assigned to a civilian contract in Atlanta, far away from Redstone. Since then, I've occasionally tried to research Project Osprey, but turned up nothing except references to the V-22 Osprey aircraft, which isn't relevant. That friend of mine, B, stopped responding to messages around December. Maybe he just changed his number. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it feels like he got spooked. I also asked my old coworker about updates on that corridor security cameras and the unmarked trucks. He simply said, "I can't talk about it anymore," and changed the subject. Safe to say, neither of these guys want to really talk to me anymore. I know how all this sounds, like I'm weaving a thriller out of nothing. But I trust my gut. Something's being moved around these Army installations, and it's not standard hardware. Whatever Project Osprey Y is, it's under serious E. And I truly believe the unmarked cargo I saw and that humming machinery were connected to something beyond typical military R&D. Maybe it's advanced tech from a crash retrieval. Maybe it's an artifact from God knows where. Or maybe it's something more unsettling, like an actual entity. I can't prove any of it, but I've seen enough to know the official narrative doesn't add up. So that's it. I'm posting here because maybe I'm not the only one. Maybe someone else at Redstone or Wright-Pat or any other base has seen the same unmarked trucks, or heard that strange hum, or overheard cryptic arguments about no paper trail. If you have, I'd appreciate own. I'm not looking to blow open a giant conspiracy. Heck, I'm worried enough as it is just typing this. But I feel compelled to share because we all deserve to know that something bigger might be unfolding behind the scenes. Something that no one in charge wants to talk about. Anyway, thanks for reading, and please be safe. If I suddenly disappear, I guess we'll have our answer. Maybe it's all just Black Ops technology. Or maybe it's something that doesn't fit into neat categories like human or alien. Whatever it is, I doubt it's leaving the shadows anytime soon.